Hey everybody, it's me, Fjorg the Builder. Welcome to the Forge. So me and Lucas here, we're going to try and do a little podcast here. And hopefully we don't screw up. That's the goal, right?
It's just talking.
Yeah, but we could definitely screw up talking. That is absolutely something we're capable of doing.
I
So
know that.
this is the first episode of Fjord's Forge. I'm not even sure that's really what we're going to call it, but it's the first episode of something. And we're going to talk about all things geek. But first, let me introduce myself a little more for those that don't know me. I go by the name Fjorg the Builder, which is based on a character name I used in a role-playing server for Ark Survival Evolved. This was hosted by a mod company, Dragonpunk, where I was able to get a lot of notice with this character. People refused to call me anything other than Fjorg. And well, I just really liked the name too. It has become my online persona, and I kind of love it. Since then, I've developed a small following on Twitter and have attempted to break into other medium as well, such as Discord, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and conventions. I just love talking about D&D, gaming, and nerd culture. That diversifying was just a great way to further the conversation. That's what it's all about for me, is the conversation. I love talking about this stuff, talking with creators, artists, designers, makers, enthusiasts, just all of it really. I want to know all about what it is that inspires you and what passions you gravitate to. I'm no expert, but I am appreciative of those that are working on or are masters in what they do. So, what's the goal of this podcast? The goal is simple: to have conversations about the things we love, bring guests on to chat about various topics, discuss the news, talk about hobbies and passions, and to have fun doing it. But that's me. That's like a little background for, I guess, the online persona that I have. Lucas, how about you? Like, what draws you to Dungeons and Dragons? Where did your persona come from?
Well, I don't really have a persona. I kind of just keep hopping from name to name. I did a YouTube update like what 2 days ago,
Yeah.
but I started playing D&D when I was like 11 or 12 because it was just me and my very sick brother living together, and he had played it most of his younger life. So he's like, "Well, I'll just do one-off games and I'll play the whole party. I don't care." So that's how I got introduced to it, and kind of fell in love with it just from the role play aspect. And I made some friends at school, and we would play like little short games and stuff like that. And I just like the idea that you can create a character and then become that character and watch them grow and change.
So I want to
And
roll
as
back. You
sure,
would make the whole party, like you'd play the whole party, and your brother
my
would
brother
DM.
would.
Oh,
My
you would
brother.
DM, and your brother would make the whole party.
Well, no, I was like 11. My brother was the DM.
Oh, okay, okay,
He,
okay.
yeah. Basically, he would. He wasn't so much in for it for like, oh, hey, I'm gonna give you this super challenging combat scenario.
Uh huh.
Like he would go really light on the rules because it was just me. But I'd make my character, and he'd basically give me some type of DPS that I wasn't. So like if I was, a fighter, he'd be like, oh, we're gonna get a mage and a cleric. Like I always had backup that he'd play, and then we would just go off on little one-off adventures, so he could tell his stories.
That's awesome. My intro into D&D is way less like heartwarming because like my older brother also introduced me to D&D, and this is like back in like '96.
Did
And
he uh did he like tie you up and say, "Play it, you fool"?
no, I had to beg him to. He's my older brother. He played with his friends, and I had to kind of beg my way into the game. But also, he needed more players. It was mostly just my older brother trying to kill my characters in just the most entertaining way for him. So, like, my introduction to D&D was not great, other than I realized that I had stories to tell. So, I learned to DM really quickly so that I could bring my friends into the hobby and tell my stories because his stories usually revolved around me falling off a cliff or just dying, as older brothers tend to torture their younger brothers. So I love your your version of how you got into it a lot more than mine. So
Well, to be fair, he had no other choice because he moved out here to the middle of nowhere with us. So
yeah,
I mean, he could kill my character, but he's like, well, that's the game. I
yeah,
can go
yeah.
back and watch TV.
The adventure's over for him too, if he
Yeah.
kills your character. True. So, I mean, D&D is a very complicated game. It's been more complicated in the past. I think Fifth Edition does a great job of rounding off a lot of the hard edges, and that's brought a lot of people to the hobby. But people do have some common mistakes with game mechanics that they make quite often. And I think new DMs and players, if you look things up online, you're going to see a lot of times where people will reference abbreviations in RAW or RAI. So RAW is rules as worded, and RAI is rules as intended. And the key difference here is sometimes you'll go through a rule and it's very clear. You read it A to B, it means this, and that's rules as worded. You are to implement the rules as they're worded in the book, in the game. Sometimes you'll come across something where rules as intended are probably the better way to go about it. So if a rule seems unclear or a rule seems, in a sense, the wording is confusing, but the intent is clear, then go with the intent to the rule. And that's usually the best way as a DM to rule on something that comes up in a game. Just kind of go with what you think the intention was and stick to it, because when you deep dive into the there are people that will take the wording of a rule, break it down word by word, and go at it in more of a mathematical sense and say, this, because it neglects to reference this, infers this, and it gets really confusing. And that's where you get to game breaking mechanics like, you know, power word kill and a polymorphed creature. And that can kind of kill the fun in a game when you polymorph a creature to something that has less than 100 hit points and use power word kill on it, and that creature's dead. Well, most people say no. When a creature dies and is polymorphed, when it goes to 0 hit points or dies, it changes back to its prior form. Well, when you break down the words of everything, including the spell power word kill and polymorph, the state of death carries into the new form. So if you power word kill a snail, then that snail changes back into a Tarrasque, and that Tarrasque is dead. Um,
Uh, Another good one is attack of opportunity.
mm-hmm.
I know somebody when they were playing, they were tied up, and someone was talking to them and everything, and went to walk away. And he's like, "Oh, attack of opportunity."
Oh, it's a restrained character.
Yeah, it's like
Mm.
you're tied up. It's like, but right here it says when they move out of my space, I can attack them. Can I try to trip them or something? And it's like, well, I guess you could do that.
I mean, I think in that situation, I'd say yes, go ahead, try and headbutt them, trip them, but you have disadvantage.
Yeah.
And I think DMs need to be flexible in a sense to take those where I think as written, there's a lot of things that you probably shouldn't be able to do, but I would still like to see the player try.
Well, I mean, there's times where a situation is brought up, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of goes against the wording and the rules, but I'm like, I want to see how this plays out as a DM. I want to see what happens from this. So sure,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead, roll for it.
Yeah. Well, so in I don't know if that cleared up rules as worded and rules as intended, but it is that's when you see those abbreviations when you are looking something up online. That's what those refer to. But one of the common mistakes, and this is one that Lucas brought up when we were prepping for the show, was the barbarian, and specifically when you go to the frenzy barbarian, there are some there are some things here, and it's typically so. Why don't you talk about that with the frenzied rage?
Oh, you want me to go off of it?
Yeah, why not? You're the one that brought it up.
Well, whenever you enter a frenzy rage, it's basically giving an extra attack. So someone who's all out DPS is like, oh, I can use my bonus attack or my bonus action to attack again. It's more DPS. Yeah, I'm going to do that. But what they don't see is that it takes your bonus action to activate it. So it doesn't start until next turn. So they're like, oh, I frenzy rage and I I get my 2 attack actions for my regular action. You're like, okay, and now my frenzy attack. No, you don't get that till next turn. I mean, that's just a small one that a lot of people
Yeah.
overlook, especially
So,
new players.
and to piggyback off of that, if we're looking at the timing of everything, we're in turn one, and your barbarian player says, "I would like to go into a rage." Because frenzy rage, you get that level of exhaustion. You may not want to go there, so you use that bonus action to go into rage, and you're in a rage, and you've got your extra rage damage. You've got your bonus to athletics checks, and you have your resistance to
Damage.
bludgeoning,
Yeah.
piercing, and slashing damage. And to clarify that also, that is from magical and non-magical sources. So that slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning, you have resistance from magical and non-magical sources. So in this turn, turn one, your bonus action has been used to rage. If you choose to go into a frenzied rage, that would have to occur on turn two. And on turn two, you still would not get to attack with that bonus action because it still requires a bonus action to activate the frenzied rage. So your Path of the Berserker Barbarian, if they want to conserve their action efficiency, they need to hit that frenzied rage turn one. That way, turn two, they're going to get their action attack, whether they have multi attack or not. They'll get their action to attack, and or sorry, not multi attack. Players get extra attack, but a third level Path of Berserker Barbarian is going to have action, one attack, bonus action, another attack, but only the turn after they enter that frenzied rage. So that's important to know. It's not that they just get an extra attack, they are using that bonus action every round to make that extra attack. So if that frenzied barbarian also gets Great Weapon Master and manages to bring a creature down to 0 hit points or crits, that extra attack from Great Weapon Master also uses a bonus action. So you're not going to get to do the frenzied extra attack and your Great Weapon Master extra attack. You only get one bonus action. You have to choose which one you're going to use.
Yeah, that's why it's better just to do your attack action, and then if you finish it off, just be like, okay, well, bonus action for Great Weapon Master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And then if you don't, you can be like Frenzy Rage.
and so this is one of the areas where the Path of Berserker has just never been a real appealing option to me because there's lots of ways to get that attack action as a bonus action. You can dual wield, you can take Great Weapon Master and get bonus action attacks every once in a while. Frenzy Barbarian is a good way to always get that extra attack, especially if you're using a heavy weapon and you can't dual wield. But I've never been a huge fan of the Frenzy Barbarian. Um,
Well, I think this class and this subclass specifically was aimed towards new players.
mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people say fighter is the easiest class to play, but I would say it's a berserker barbarian because I
Yeah,
mean if you get into fighters, is it champion that gets all the
yeah,
attack
champion.
dice?
Yeah, champion's pretty easy too.
I mean, yeah, but with barbarian you're just going to want to hit and not die. Those are your
Yeah,
focus.
yeah,
I've played 3 games with somebody who's a newish player, and he has played a Berserker Barbarian every time because he likes it. He doesn't
yeah,
have to sit there and keep track of everything. He's like, I want to punch something.
yeah. You got a few rages to track, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, the barbarian, in my opinion, there's a lot of people that argue this point, but in my opinion, the barbarian is the only class in D&D that I would categorize as a tank
Yeah.
because of the resistance to damage. And very specifically, you look at the totem barbarian, and if you go bear totem, getting that resistance to everything but psychic, that's a huge boon for saying this is a tank class. I get the most hit points, I get the ability to resist the most damage, or you can go into the Ancestral Guardian barbarian path from Xanathars, and that's even more powerful because now you're giving your resistance to damage to other players in your party. But we're not here to talk about the ins and outs of barbarian, but that's definitely something I think we should on a later episode kind of go through each of these classes and subclasses, kind of talk about the pros and cons. Um,
Of each one. Yeah.
yeah, the next part in game mechanics that I commonly see people unsure about or make a mistake about is armor class calculations. And since we're already looking at the barbarian, I want to talk unarmored defense. While you are not wearing any armor, I constantly see people not paying attention to the very first section of the unarmored defense portion. While you're not wearing armor, your armor class calculation is 10 plus your dex plus your constitution modifier. If it was monk, it would be 10 plus dex plus wisdom modifier. You can still use a shield to gain this benefit. Where unarmored defense for monk, you can't use a shield. Even if you get the skill to use a shield, the shield is not added in this calculation. So for barbarian, you're going to be 10 plus your dex mod plus your con mod, and then you can wear a shield. It's another part of where I say barbarian is one of the only true tanks. Because you're going to get that +2 AC from that shield if you want it one-handed. But there are other things you can add to an armor class calculation, as long as it's not creating your base armor class, but bracers of defense, cloak of protection, magical items that just add a +1 or +2 to AC. Those, just like a shield does, those do not negate your armor class calculation.
It's because it's a magical effect. You're not wearing armor. It's a spell.
Yeah. So these are the ways you can calculate your armor. You either have a racial armor calculation, which I think laser folk are one of the ones that have that, where it will say it in your race stats clearly how you calculate your armor. You're going to have the base armor calculation because you're wearing an armor you're proficient in. If you're not proficient in the armor, you do not gain an armor class from that armor. So if you're wearing armor you're not proficient in, you still get 10 plus your dexterity, but you wouldn't get the armor modifier for it. And then finally you have things like unarmored defense, things that are class-based armor calculations. If you have a race that is armor class calculation, you're wearing armor, and you have unarmored defense, you have to pick one of the three. You don't get to choose all of the three. But if you're wearing armor, unarmored defense doesn't count. So your only options would be what's my racial armor class and what's my base armor class. You get to choose one of those.
I mean, a fair point to say off of that is, if you pick up an armor for, like, let's say it's magical effect, like it's got a nice enchantment on it, like, oh, this is +2, that adds, even more, or hey, this gives me resistance to poison. If you put that on and then try to say, like, oh no, I want my natural armor class, you can't do that. You can't get the magical effect of the armor and the AC of a different one.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple, but it's one of those things where I never realized that it is confusing. Sometimes you read something, you get it the first time, and other times you realize that there's some things that just need a little more clarification. Sorry, I need to update the the stream. I didn't update the info on the stream because I suck at streaming apparently.
I was gonna message you about that, but I didn't want to bother you.
Yeah, no, I just saw that. I was like, oh man. As much as
about Arc later.
Yeah. Yes, let's talk about our the greatest game ever. I just, yeah, as prepared as I try and be, I always seem to. I told you I'd screw up talking. So
I mean, it happens. It's just conversation, though.
So the next one is temp HP, and I think what I see most people make their mistake on temp HP. It's going to be where it goes, and it's not hit points you get for free, and as far as to your main hit point pool. This is a secondary hit point pool. So you have temp HP and you have HP. Damage that you get is going to go to your temp HP first, excess damage beyond what your temp HP is goes to your main hit point pool. So, as an example, you have 5 temporary hit points, and you receive an attack from a creature that does 7 damage. 5 of that's going to go to your temp HP, and it becomes 0, and it is gone until you earn temp HP from another source, and then the remaining 2 damage goes to your hit points.
Yeah, like if you heal, you don't get healed into your temp HP. They are gone when they're gone.
Yep, it is a finite thing. Now, you can regain temp HP by having it provided to you by another source. So, say you're a warlock and you have the false life uh, invocation, and you cast that on yourself, and you gain the temporary hit points from that. And you take some damage, and you have 2 temporary hit points left. If you cast false life on yourself again, the new value of your temporary HP is the value of the recast spell. You don't get to add 2 plus the new value. That 2 gets removed from the game, and the new value of the spell cast is what becomes your new temp HP.
You also lose temp HP at a short rest, not a long rest. If
No,
you
I
take a quick
think it's
break,
actually a long rest. I think I was mistaken when I said that earlier. Because
well,
I,
see, even I don't know about temp HP.
yeah, well, I mentioned short rest, but I looked it up. So right here, at least official 5e D&D wiki, um, they last until depleted or you finish a long rest. So I was mistaken, and I misled you, Lucas. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I accept your half-assed apology.
It is at least part of my ass, yes.
Good.
So another one was a spell that you brought up, and I think this applies to. There's a lot of spells like this, but you were talking about Crown of Madness this morning, and how it has a big feature that a lot of people miss down here.
Yeah, I've had personal experience using it before, and I've seen other people, be it on podcasts or streams, playing D&D totally miss this. But you have to use your action on each of your turns to just keep the spell up, and the creature still gets a save if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is very cost heavy to basically control one enemy creature because they are charmed.
Yeah, I mean you're burning your action to keep this going.
Every single turn. And then you could burn your action. It could be up next in the order, and then it can make it save. Does it make it save at the beginning or the end of its turn?
And at the end of each turn.
Yeah, so I mean, you could literally tell it to come over and protect you, and then make it save, and then it's going to turn on you next turn.
Now you just moved an enemy closer to you. And so another good spell example of this is Witch Bolt. Let's pull that up.
Oh, yeah.
So Witch Bolt, on a hit, the target takes 1d12 lightning damage. On each of your turns for the duration, you can use your action to deal 1d12 damage to the target automatically. So there's a couple things that people will screw up on this. One is you have to stay within range. The spell range doesn't change just because you hit them on turn 1. You have to cast a spell within 30 feet. You have to maintain 30 feet to keep the spell effect going, because the range of that spell is 30 feet. So on a hit, so you make your ranged spell attack. On a hit, you do 1d12 damage, and each of your turns for the duration, you can use your action to deal 1d12 lightning damage automatically. The benefit of this spell is you only have to roll the hit once. And once you've rolled the hit them, you have this guaranteed 1d12 damage that you can do. And if you are lucky enough to have something you can do with your bonus action as well on each of those turns, you've got some pretty good action efficiency. I like this because it's a high amount of damage for low level, and it's a guaranteed hit on every turn after that. So the only way the spell can end is either if you lose concentration or you use your action to do anything else.
Or if they move out of range.
Or if this, so If the spell also ends if the target is ever outside the spell's range or if it has a total cover from you. So, this is another thing. It's not just you that has to stay within 30 feet. The creature also needs to stay within 30 feet. So, if you're casting the spell and that creature ever moves outside of that 30-foot range, your spell is broken regardless of your concentration. So, it can be really good, but it can also be broken uh, very easily. All that creature has to do is get full cover. So if you're in a dungeon room, the creature can retreat out of the room, break line of sight, breaks the spell, and they can come right back in that room and use their action to attack you. Keep that in mind. As a player, you can also do this. If you're fighting an enemy that casts Witch Bolt on you, you can just jump behind cover, break that line of sight, kill the spell, jump back out, and attack that creature. So it's a cool spell. It seems really awesome until you read the whole description and really look at how it can be used. It's actually not as powerful as one would think, which is why it's a first level spell.
Well, I mean, when you read all of that and you take all that in, though, it changes how you would use the spell too. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like, let's say you got someone who's pinned down by a melee enemy, you can be like, "Well, I'm going to lock you into 1d12 of lightning damage every turn unless you move out of my range. I'm going to stay right here and keep doing this damage to you." So just whenever you read a spell or an ability or something like that, and it's not what you thought, you could still probably use it. You just might have to think of it in a different way.
Yeah, and really what I would look at is, say one of your players in the party cast Hold Person on a creature. That is absolutely the round that I want to cast Witch Bolt on them. Because, you're going to have advantage on the attack. And, well, actually, only melee attacks. I don't know. I got to look. It's this condition of Hold Person. They're paralyzed, so I think even ranged attacks have advantage, but only melee attacks are auto crits. Uh, Grappling is another good time if you have a barbarian or someone else that likes to grapple in your group. Because if that barbarian grapples the creature's movement is now 0. So the creature can never move out of range of Witch Bolt. So that's another good tactical opportunity to use Witch Bolt is if you're in a situation where another player has grappled the creature, that creature is a prime target for Witch Bolt. You just have to roll the hit.
I mean, yeah, when someone sets you up like that, look at that damage. At second level, it becomes 2d12.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's great damage for a second level spell slot.
Yeah, it's one spell slot, and for the duration, a minute, you're not spending any more spell slots. You're just doing 2d12 damage every turn as an action, as long as you keep that creature contained. So, as
And I
far as
mean,
like spell efficiency, I like that.
you fight something bigger too that even if it tries to move back, if it's still so large it's in your space, you can
Mm-hmm.
you can maintain on it.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind what your environment is. If that creature can't run away, then it's a good spell to use. So, the next part I wanted to talk about is just creating. Oh, here we go. Just creating good characters, and a lot of times creating good character, it's setting up your character with the fact that if you have a character that has no flaws, they are good at everything, they have every skill, they have good stats, they're good in combat. None of that is really rewarding in the long run, especially in a group game like D&D. You might feel great about it, but keep in mind the rest of your adventuring party might have some resentment against you. And flaws build opportunities for great role play. I love playing a character that is not good at something or not good at a lot of things. I like humor in games as a player and as a DM. So if I'm playing a big barbarian, I kind of want to play a big dumb barbarian. It's fun. It's a stereotype, but it's still fun. Um, Low charisma, this doesn't necessarily mean you're obnoxious. It doesn't also necessarily mean you're hideously ugly. You may just be socially, awkward. There's a lot of.
I'm
Go ahead.
to build off of that in our game we play on your Discord. I am playing a Knoll cleric who has barely any charisma whatsoever. He is shy, he doesn't like being around people, and he speaks in broken sentences.
Yeah, it is, as a DM, it's challenging because I know Lucas the player has a lot of capabilities uh, to shine, but Schrodinger the cleric doesn't have those those capabilities. Schrodinger the cleric has great utility. He's tactical and thinking, but he's still shy, primal in many ways, and it definitely changes how I can interact with him as a character in the game. You know, I can't just throw clues at that character and expect him to put the pieces together like I could with your other character, who was kind of more of a lore master, highly intelligent. So it changes what I can feed you as a DM to build upon your role play. And that's, I think that's important, is the DM needs to really look at what their players are bringing to the table and try and leverage not just the players' abilities, but what's the character that they have in mind. You know, don't try and force your players to be what they're not.
I
So,
mean, I couldn't say it any better myself. That's kind of your challenge as a DM,
yeah.
because your job isn't really to always craft this amazing, immaculate story no one's seen before, or to, create combat that's super impossible and they have to work real hard to get through it, but to, provide somewhere for their characters to adventure and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will play through tons of tough combat or even boring stories, but the minute I feel like my character has nothing to do, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, you have to feel like you have something to contribute. I mean, everybody comes to the table for different reasons. You know, I have players that come to the table and they want to role play. They want to get on stage and be in the spotlight. They want to lead the party, or maybe they just want to be part of all the social engagements that the party goes through. They want to be the face. And you have other people, they come to the table and they want to roll dice. They want to get into combat, they want to roll dice, they want to collect loot, they want to collect experience. They're just there to play a looter shooter, basically. And that's fine. There's those players, they won't like your RP heavy sessions. They may participate because they may still enjoy RP, but they come for the Dragon Horde. That's what they're there for. And there's other players that just want to be at the table. I have a lot of players, they don't really want to RP. They will be in combat, but they mostly just want to come to the table to watch the show. They want to be an observer to the action and still participate in a limited manner. But they don't want to be in the spotlight. They don't care if their character's the most powerful. They just want to be there and enjoy the experience of being at the table together. And don't think that you have to force that person to take a role that you think they should, or force them into heavier RP. Acknowledge them, try and fulfill their character's desires, but don't force them into anything, because that player is the player that's going to leave if you push them too hard. They just want to enjoy the story that you're trying to tell. That's their goal at the table.
I
So
mean, no, go ahead.
um, I didn't really have. Do you have anything to add to that? That's
I was gonna say, usually people, whenever they, whatever they're there for, they're going to make a character that reflects why they're there too. Like, I
yeah.
mean, you mentioned the RPers. They're going to be your bards, your sorcerers, your rogues.
Paladin probably. You know, it's a
Yeah,
anything with a
combat heavy
charisma.
ones want to be fighters, or, like warlocks usually. I noticed for some reason, barbarians. And then your people who enjoy the story, they could literally play anything.
Yeah, and they came to the table with a character. You know, I think some of your RPers aren't necessarily going to deep dive into charisma, but you're going to have a lot of people that came to the table with a character. They have a backstory prepared. They have a character's intention in mind, and I think that's a big one. Is what's your character's motivation? What is their intention? Don't bring yourself into the game unless this character is a model of yourself. if you created this character that's like this ranger, wanderer, folk hero, whatever, and they don't interact with people very often, but they have a deep love for the sanctity of nature and the wildlife, and you've created this character, but then you do nothing but want to stay in the tavern and talk to people and haggle at the store and shop around. Your character never seems to want to do anything other than, you know, collect loot and collect money. Like, you've got this counter. You don't really have a balance here. You have a character you created, and then you have what the player wants. And if that's how you want to play, that's fine. No one. I'm not here to tell anybody how to play the game, unless it's just these are the rules. Hey, this is how this works. But how you choose to play at the table, that's your choice. But if
And
you,
I mean, like, oh, go ahead.
well, no, go.
Um, if you start playing more like you and less like your character, I mean, you can easily just work with your DM to change it. Be like, the ranger you brought up. Maybe the party's like, why are you talking to so many people? I thought you've been living out in the woods. Eventually have it come out and be like, yeah, I'm a scam artist. I'm just a really good shot. I've lived out in the woods a bit, but I prefer the city. I mean, you can make it work to
Yeah.
change.
Or they've become enamored with city life after
Yeah,
spending time in
exactly.
the party and being in the city. They're like, wow, I've been living in the woods all this time, and this is wonderful. Maybe there are story elements you can put into that. But really, if you come to the table with a character in mind, don't betray your design. Try and stick to it if you can. It's going to create a better experience when everybody at that table is taking on that new persona and living within that character. You're going to build relationships between those characters instead of being person to person relationships. This will actually be your characters' relationships, and it's quite an interesting phenomena when you've developed either an animosity. You may have a best friend sitting at the table, but your characters have built this animosity between each other over some event that has occurred. And it's a great like back and forth role play as long as both parties understand that these are character interactions, not player interactions.
To briefly reiterate, I didn't mean like, day one, don't play against your character. I meant like if you've played your character for a while and you're like, I'm not enjoying this,
Yeah.
maybe have a conversation with your DM.
And I think when you're getting started, DMs have session zero, absolutely have session zero, and start off session zero. Don't let them start making characters right off the bat. Start your session zero with this is how I like to play the game. Does this affect anybody? As far as how I want to play the game. This is the story or the campaign or the setting I'm hoping to run this game in. And then talk to your players. What kind of characters do you want to play or do you like playing? Because you brought up a good point when we were setting up for the podcast about playing within the setting.
Oh yeah, I mean, like if your DM comes to you and you're like, hey, I'm setting up this game. It's gonna be high fantasy, no steampunk technology, just your medieval magic and swords. Do you want to play? And you're like, yeah. And then you go home and write up a construct character. It's not gonna match up.
Yeah, that
The same
Warforge is going to be really out of place. Absolutely.
the same way if you're doing your session zero and two people are like, hey, I want to be a fighter and I want to be a barbarian, and one person's like, well, I really like ranger. Not saying you can't, but it might not be the best idea to be like, I also want to be a fighter. I mean, you're going to have tons of damage output, but there's going to be combat encounters where you're just going to fail because you have no spell casting and no healing.
Yeah, I've run games where there was 3 to 4 players. Everybody chose a strength-based character. They all had great swords and mauls and all this stuff. And the first time they had to fight something at range, like they had some javelins and some hand throwing axes, but they really didn't have any characters that could deal with a distance target. So it really hurt them badly that session.
I
Thankfully,
mean,
they had a paladin for healing, but yeah, that
it,
was a rough game.
if you talk to everybody and everybody's picking melee characters and you really want to play a melee character, but you see that you need something else, I mean, you can build that other character and have it where they hate fighting at range. So whenever they do it, there's RP opportunities for you and the party. Like, guys, you keep making me do this. I hate y'all for this. Or guys, y'all keep making me do this. Y'all gonna have to start doing some favors for me. I mean, you can make it work to your advantage.
That's a good point. I mean, put it into your RP. By no means do you have to have the perfectly balanced party.
No.
And I also don't need to create encounters that I know my party can't deal with. I don't have to do that. I'm going to because I want them to be challenged. I don't want to just feed them the thing that they want always. You want three bugbears to fight in close combat? Sure, here you go. Here's three bugbears. No, here's two bugbears and a troop of goblin archers that are, indentured to them that are firing from the cliffside. Good luck.
Well, I mean, see, that adds even more when you're building your character because when you just completely crush an encounter, you don't remember it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you might maybe like remember, hey, last week you remember I got that crit and I killed him, but you're not gonna remember the creature.
Yeah.
But you run up in an encounter where you're like, holy shit, those archers almost killed us.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna make them pay for that. We got to be ready next time.
It's like, oh, I'm so glad you raged and climbed that cliff. Like, you just went right up it and started throwing goblins off the cliff. That was awesome. Like, yeah, I mean, hopefully your players can put some tactical inspiration into it, use terrain to advantage. There's all that stuff. But really, creating a good character has a personality, whether it's your personality or one you've invented. Good characters have a voice, and what I mean by that, it's not necessarily that you're changing your voice. It may be that they use different words. Like Fjorg as a D&D character doesn't swear, where me as a human individual will swear sometimes, often. But Fjorg doesn't. Fjorg the character is not always the bravest person, and he relies on his close friends for inspiring him to go out on an adventure because that's the kind of character he is. So it's good to kind of say, hey, how is this character going to interact with the party around them? Do they have maybe some of these party members I've known for a long time? What's the relationship I have? Talk to that other player and kind of build off of each other and maybe have a joint background instead of everybody coming to the table is like, this is my background. I was a noble son, but my family's home was destroyed, and I'm out to find the person that did it and get revenge. Well, I'm this is my character. I'm the daughter of a king and a queen. The queen was the most powerful such and such, and I'm looking for her magical staff that I will use to, get revenge, like revenge stories, orphaned children stories. Like, please come to the table with like a character that's like, hey, I've always been impressed with the world around me. Both my parents are still alive. My father's a baker. My mother's a seamstress. Um, my other brothers were going to take over the business, and my eldest sister was going to take over my mom's business. So really, I felt kind of lost. I decided to join an adventuring group and maybe be a mercenary for a while. My parents weren't thrilled, but I do hope to bring back some money to them someday. Like, that's a cool backstory because it's not overly complicated. It's complicated, but it's not like I'm part of a noble background or I'm the lost son of a king. Like, there's some.
My first character that I played with y'all, I mean, his family was alive. He was the son that his dad was kind of like, you're not doing anything, and his mom was like, hey, why don't you go to college for what you like to do? And even when he got there, he failed because they're like, you don't fit what we're looking for, and he found his place elsewhere.
Yeah,
You don't always have to be the destined hero.
yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just had a normal upbringing, uh, and that's cool because it can create a character that is experiencing a lot of firsts instead of being someone like everybody sits down at the table level one. I'm a badass. I'm level one, but my character is a badass. I'm gonna do all this cool stuff. Or you could play level one and be like, man, I am really nervous. I've never done this stuff before. This guy is saying, go kill these goblins, and I barely know how to swing my sword. Like, sometimes being like the newbie can be a good story progression for your character because as you're leveling up, you are becoming that badass eventually. But level 1 is not end game. So,
So, slightly off point, but it
mhm.
does reinforce building, a good character. I had this one player who, when he started out, his character was just terrified of everything. Like, he was a fighter just because he had no magical talent and wasn't, like, angry or anything. So, like, when he would kill something, he'd be like, oh God, there's blood everywhere. Oh, it's so warm. Oh, and then by like level 8 and 9, he was slowly turning into the huzzah! I've got you. Get behind me. I'll protect you.
Why
And it
do
was
they?
just such a good thing to see play through.
Yeah. A friend of mine, he had a character that was a similar idea. Like he's new to everything, and his biggest moment at the table was the first time he killed a creature, a humanoid creature. He kills the DM's like, okay, you killed the creature, and he goes, oh my god, why did they shit themselves when they die? He's just going off about that, like, and that's actually kind of a real point. Like when a human being does die, they release the things that they've been holding on to, uh, and that it was just a very funny moment because it's you don't think about that when you're playing D&D and you're slaughtering a horde of goblins. How smelly that battle must be as you're into
Well,
your
I mean,
30th goblin.
making your character extremely human, even if they're not a human, really brings the game forward.
Yeah, yeah, putting some humanity and weakness into them.
Because, I mean, there's plenty of things that's going to elevate them past your modern person because they're going to have magic or
Hmm.
amazing sword skills. But, giving them a fear of the ocean kind of, I don't want to get on that boat.
You
I
know,
don't care that I can fly. I don't want to get on that boat.
I have a friend who he had one bad experience in a game on a boat, and like ever since, no matter what character he plays, they all refuse to get on a boat. Like all of them, because something bad. The ocean is death. As a player, he knows that anytime he gets on the water, the DM will do something to drag him under and something. So he just refuses. No matter what character he plays, he will not get on a boat. So but also like saying yes as a DM to player driven world building, like if a player does want to come to your table with an interesting backstory that can add layers to the story that you want to tell as a DM, like say yes to that. Try and weave those backstories in because it helps to kind of broaden out the world, and it's going to give you ideas for things you can do that aren't necessarily specifically in the setting. If you are playing like a pre-written game, you can still weave in those backstory elements and kind of add some side stories.
I mean, they're literally coming to you and saying, "Hey, can I do a little bit of your job for you and just, give you a town or a family or some tragic event that happened?" They're literally doing something that you can build off of. And even what they give you, you don't have to like verbatim replay it back to them like, "Oh, my family was killed by this other family who wondered what we had." You could literally, when they get to the point of revelation for their character story, be like, "Oh, look, it was one of your own family turned on you."
Hmm.
They're just giving you a good starting place, and you can integrate that into the world.
Yeah, I would definitely, as a DM, suggest that you request your players if they want to provide you with a backstory. Not every player wants to be that deep into their character development, but if you have players that want to have a backstory and they want to put effort into it, ask them to provide it to you, to send it to you in a Word document or a text or anyway, but then print that out and keep that with your game notes so you can look through that and say, hey, do I have an opportunity here to kind of maybe slip something in? Maybe this long lost brother, this brother that left the house to go be a knight in the king's army, and you don't trust the nobility anymore, so you went to become a mercenary instead because you both learned swordsmanship under your father that died, who was a paladin, or however your backstory's arranged. But maybe that brother you thought was dead, the DM can go, oh no, that brother's not dead. That brother is actually like a minion of the big bad evil guys. And you're gonna come across him, but he's covered up. He's wearing like a helmet, but you see maybe with the correct perception check, you notice a token that you remember your brother earning from a woman at one of the jousting events or swordsmanship events that he did when you were younger, and you go, wait, I recognize that token. That's messed up. This guy either took it from my brother's dead body, or this might be my brother. Like, you can weave in little clues, but don't hand it to him. He had to get that perception check, or maybe that passive perception, to see it.
I mean, whenever you make a backstory and give it to a DM, if a good DM incorporates it, you should by all means play your character like your backstory is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when that reveal of, oh shit, you thought they were dead? Well, now you're about to fight them and they're not who they used to be. You're like, oh god, like you as a player are surprised. You as your character are betrayed. And it really brings a lot to the game.
Mm-hmm. And
It
some
makes it
go ahead.
it makes it better than just like, okay, he's my brother. I'd like to roll a d20 to attack him.
Yeah, there, there is nothing wrong with a DM that adds emotion to the gameplay. Like, when there's an emotional component to the storytelling, it's just more rewarding all around to everyone. It's okay to tell sad stories, because those sad stories are what's going to motivate your players to conquer the day, to be the heroes that you want them to be. But it's also okay as a player to speak up, and or even as if a player brings something up and it's just something you can add into the lore of the world, just say yes as the DM, play off of it, let them be creative with you, but also
And I,
speak up as a player if you're not feeling like you're being included, or you maybe feel like your character's not involved. Speak up, talk to the DM between sessions, and ask them if there's a way that they could touch on to something to make you feel like you're more a part of the story.
and it's a bit of a challenge, but if someone comes to you and they don't really craft a backstory, and you can build something out of that still. You're like, okay, well, how about this small town? You're from there. Are you okay with that? And they're like, yeah. And then every time they go to the town, their parents are like, oh, it's so great to see you. And maybe a guy or girl is like, hey, I really wish you hadn't have left. You were great, and just build it up, and then have something happen to the town. That player that didn't have a backstory now has a backstory of every time they went back there, and now that place is under attack.
Mm-hmm. There's so many layers you can add to your game that's not going to take away from the core story, but gives your players a secondary motivation to do other things. It's really going to broaden out that game and kind of prolong the story. But also, sometimes as DMs and players, we do make mistakes, and the story maybe gets off the rails. People say railroading's bad, but railroading or having a story path is kind of an element of good storytelling. Knowing where your start and your finish is kind of a good tool as a DM to know. The journey shouldn't feel one directional, and that's where the railroading part of it would come from. But there should be a semi linear line that would go from A to B. If your players want to just follow the carrot the whole time, it could just very well be a straight line to the end, and that's how your players chose to play. Sometimes they'll get on tangents and they'll get off course, but through good story mechanics and tools that you can develop as a DM, you can redirect them back on path without making it feel like, no, you need to go here. If you don't go here, the game's over. I've seen that happen before. I have nothing prepped for this, so you're on your own, folks. The game's going to be boring. Just don't retaliate like that. Just sometimes you need to just say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm unprepared today. I thought you guys were really going to go this direction. I prepared a lot of stuff, and I think it's important to the game. Do you guys mind, like, just saying yes and going with this? Because I think you'll really enjoy it. Go ahead and say that. If that's what's happening, if your players have put you in a corner where you have nothing to provide as a DM, they're not going to have fun. You're not going to have fun, and you're going to walk away from that session, feeling very unrewarded.
I
So,
mean, like if you say, I don't have anything planned here, is it fine if we, go to what I say and they say no? You're like, well, we're going to end it here and I'm going to have to go make stuff. And I mean that's like the worst that can happen if you as a DM just approach and say, I have nothing.
Yeah,
Them saying, well, we still want to go this way. Well, it'll take some time. Let me do some writing.
yeah. It, you can ask for a retcon for certain things. Like maybe you made a big mistake and it changed how a player felt like their story was going. Sometimes you need to retcon things. Sometimes mistakes happen that can alter the story trajectory completely. And sometimes you can play out of a mistake and redirect your players. But communicating with your players is probably your number one resource for making sure that everybody's feeling fulfilled at the table, that you as a DM feel like your storytelling is going the way you intended it. Because the DM is the hardest working person at the table. They know all your character sheets. They know what your characters can do. They know what the monsters can do. They know the monster stat sheet. They know the overarching story. They know your backgrounds. They know what you've done in every session up until this point. They know what you're probably going to do every session after this point. They are prepared. They have studied. They are ready to tell you a crafted story. And you, as a player, just show up. I guess that's a little simplified. There's lots of players that put a lot more effort into it, but for the most part, the hardest working person at the table is the DM. Bring them snacks. You know, reward your DM. They work very hard for your enjoyment, but also don't intentionally make it difficult on them. You know, if you see the carrot and you just intentionally ignore it because you don't want to be railroaded per se, just don't be that person. You know, look at Critical Role. It is an incredibly railroaded story. Not in a and I'm not being critical about it. I'm just telling you, these are professional actors that are trained to say yes. They see story points and direction and they go with it. But you will also see those players make conscious decisions not to follow Matt's trails because their character motivation doesn't fit what Matt thought they would do. They are playing to their character. They are trained professionals that keep their character in mind, and they're playing those characters as they should. And it's a great example of what many of us strive to be in our games, as far as so devoted to our character, or like Matt, so devoted to the world building and the story. But keep in mind, they are professionals that know how to be entertaining. So don't come to a table with Critical Role expectations for session one. Build into that character. Your character, it's going to take you a while to become your character, and it's going to take the DM a while to flush out that story and create a world where your character is fully involved. Don't go for it. Yeah.
I would say Critical Role has probably one of the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Travis Willingham. Because whenever he does something, he just let whatever happens. I touch this. Well, you get teleported into another room. Okay,
Yeah.
what do I say in the room?
Yeah.
People are like, well, no, I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, there's no regrets. He's got no regrets. He just does it like the deck of many things with Grog. He knew it could go horribly wrong, but
He had the whole party telling him don't do it.
but
He still did it.
but Grog Strongjaw, he's got to pull a card. He's got to
I
pull
mean,
three
that other
cards.
guy did.
Yeah,
Another guy did. He got wishes. I mean, he'd get something good.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I haven't really watched the Wildmount series, but the Vox Machina series I watched religiously from the first episode. But Craven Edge, that episode with Grog in the outhouse with Craven Edge and Scanlan just outside the outhouse, just say, "Are you okay in there, buddy?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm fine." That was probably some of the best like character moments in a story ever. That is a memorable moment that I'll always cherish. And I'm with you. I really like Travis. I love Laura Bailey and how she's very good at weaving moments, especially with Jester.
okay.
Her current campaign character is very good at just going through the moment and being just playful and fun. But I do really love Travis. I met him at a Comic Con. I even had my Dungeon Master's Guide signed by him because his one time DMing and he DM'd as Grog, like in character. I just loved it. And so I said, "Hey, you're my favorite DM ever. Can you sign my DM's guide?" And he was like, "Really?" He's like, "You want me to sign your Dungeon Master's guide like before Mercer?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, absolutely. You're the guy. You're the one." And he's like, "Oh, that's awesome." He was super nice. It was a great opportunity to meet him. But yeah, he is. It is amazing watching an incredibly intelligent person play a dumb character.
I mean, as long as you stay true to your character, whenever mistakes are made, you can usually just roll with them
Mm-hmm.
and see what your character would do.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something game breaking, then the DM will address it because as a DM, you have that moment where you're like, "Oh no, I've got to fix this," and you could try to fix it with story reasons, or just be like, "You know what, y'all guys are right. That shouldn't have happened." It could be an attack, it could be an ability, it could be an event that you forgot about. Because it is hard to keep an ongoing story up when you don't write everything down.
Yeah. I'm horrible at taking notes as a player. Um, I do fairly well as a DM because I feel like it's part of my role set in that when I'm playing as a DM, I know I need to write down names and concepts and ideas and keep track of all that. But as a player, I am horrible at writing notes. Horrible at it because I have ADD. When you're a player, you're not always in action. As a DM, you're always in action. So it's a lot easier for me to stay focused. But as a player, I drift off. I do love being a player. I love being a player more than a DM when I have a good character to play. But note taking is definitely a must.
Well, I mean, like if, like you said, you're like that, and your character alone comes across something you would have had notes about that you could even say your party told you about, but you don't have the notes. Instead of having another player be like, "Oh, it's this," and you're like, "Well, your character doesn't know. You forgot." I mean, you can play around mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to fix them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I I like to play into that if I can. I have a Minotaur barbarian named Chicago, uh, who has a 6 intellect. So I do not take notes at all. Like, intentionally do not take notes. And I intentionally do not lead the party. Like, if they look to me to make a decision, it's not going to be a decision uh, you want made because he's not bright. So I was looking for. Oh, here we go. So he's got a 6 intellect, so he's got a -2 modifier. I actually wanted it to be lower, but the DM's like, no, 6 is as low as you're gonna go. I'm like, oh, fine. But yeah, -2 modifier on his intellect. He has 2 battle axes that he wields in combat. The battle axes are named. The one is named left, and the other one is named not left, so that he knows which one to hold in each hand. And they're actually magical battle axes that require a 20 intellect to activate. So since he has a 6 intellect, he'll never have an intellect high enough to actually use these axes. It's just part of like the interior story joke inside the game, which is fun when you have things that you have this incredibly powerful weapons in your hand that you'll never be able to activate because your intellect will never be a 20. We just thought that was so funny for that character.
I mean, you should always try to play up your flaws.
Yeah, absolutely. Flaws build good characters. Good low stats build strong characters. I truly believe that, and you can a lot of times build a story around why those stats are so low. Why is your dexterity so low? Are you really clumsy? Is that going to come into play during combat or during social situations where maybe you're nervous? You're walking through the tavern to go find a table and you're going to trip over a chair, or run into a patron, and now all of a sudden you've got this interaction with the patron that you didn't really want to start, but because you ran into him, now you have to talk your way out of it. So maybe you have a high charisma but a low dex. How does that play out?
I uh, I played a wizard once I generally roll my stats. Like I could do the point buy or the set numbers, but I
Mm-hmm.
like rolling them. And I got like a 4 or a 5, and I put it into Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing was not that like he was deathly ill, but he was just like sick and allergic to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I would play that up at opportunities where it didn't really matter. Go to the tavern, eat something. Oh, my stomach's acting up. I gotta go and just run out. Like I mean,
Yeah. Well, so as far we're talking about, you played a wizard, Wizards of the Coast. You like that segue? You played a wizard, Wizards of the Coast.
I'm trying to set you up.
Wizards of the Coast does their generally monthly Unearthed Arcanas, and so for the current month that we're in, I believe this is the most recent one they've released. They have two new subclasses. When they go through these subclasses like they're doing right now, they're preparing for a new book that's going to revolve around character development. So when the last time they did all these subclasses, they released Xanathars shortly after. This time around, they're coming up with another kind of player tool, and Xanathars is a book that everybody should get because it has a lot of tools for coming up with character names, for downtime activities. It has new spells, has new magical items. Xanathars has more than just character subclass options. It's full of stuff. So the new book it'll most likely include the Artificer as because they'll do that often, where they'll take something they included like in the Eberron book, and they'll probably include the Artificer into the new print material that's coming up, so that players can buy a book that isn't necessarily Eberron's setting, but includes some of that Eberron player content. I wouldn't be surprised if it's there. But they're also going to, in that new book, they've talked about that they're going to kind of do away or give players an option to do away with race, each race having specific stat ups, where you just get, when you make your character, you can pick a race, but that race isn't, if you pick elf, it isn't +2 dex and +1 in another stat. It'll be +2 in any stat you want and +1 in any stat you want, or it's +1 in 3 stats, or however. So I think they're kind of doing away with being race being a min max calculation, where race is a little less important, like which race you pick. You can be, that race can be good at whatever you want it to be. So I'm interested to see what they come out with that. But that's why you're seeing these subclass options. So the first one here is Bard, College of Spirits. So they've got a very gothic, dark, kind of haunted feel here. Um,
I mean, if if this had been out when I made Epic, this is definitely what he would have.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Have you
because
read through
he's all
this?
about stories. I was reading it as we were talking, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's all about stories and stories of the past. Like history was really important to him.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I can see how like finding like a wandering spirit and learning
Yeah,
about what they've encountered.
yeah, that would be way better than just like general knowledge as a lore bard, but like actual stories from just like a regular person who died. How'd you die? How'd you live? So this would have been right up his alley.
Yeah, so the College of Spirits, they're gonna get guiding whispers. So you're gonna get the guidance cantrip. I mean that's not huge. Um, but it doesn't I know, so it doesn't count against your number of bard cantrips known, which is good. But
I mean, mix
guidance,
that with inspiration.
yeah. It has a range of 60 feet, though. That's nice. Um, you can use a special spellcasting focus. Okay. The kind of crystal ball, talking board, tarot deck.
Yeah.
Um, and then at 6th level, you can cast bard spells through it and gains a d6, which is nice. I mean, if you cast, I mean, look, this is actually really powerful. You cast Healing Word, which now does a d4 and a d6. Um, and it doesn't look like there's a limitation. So when you cast a bard spell that deals damage or restores hit points, through your spell's focus, roll a d6. You gain a bonus to one roll of the spell equal to the number rolled. Yeah, so healing word. Wow. Now you have a maximum output of 1d4, 1d6 plus charisma mod. So, I mean, if you got max roll, that's 15 hit points for a first level spell slot. That's
Yeah, that's really good.
that's really good. I don't know that that really fits into this, but I think I would have gone
It,
a different direction. But
I mean, it would also make the bread and butter vicious mockery a little bit better
oh yeah, vicious
because
mark.
it would essentially become, your Eldritch Blast, but with a chance to cause a disadvantage
Yeah.
and a minimum roll of two instead of one.
So one of the home rules I've tried to implement when I have a bard in the group is, and I feel like this was a missed opportunity for wizards. Vicious mockery in my games is a bonus action.
Oh God, that would be amazing.
It's only a D4. It's a element of control. It gives that bard a little more power play in their kind of open action. They can still do something with their action and taunt a foe because it's when you're like for me, I remember like Kender in Dragonlance. That was part of their battle tactic was getting their foe to go into a rage through taunts. So for me, like when I'm thinking of a bard who's maybe going through the battle and kind of casting a few spells, or maybe they're hitting someone over the head with their lute. I had a bard who had a petrified wood lute that he would use as a club.
That's pretty great.
You're still able to shout out like, you know, your mother was an ogre and your father smells of elderberries, like and kind of taunting and distracting foes in the middle of battle. So for me, vicious mockery is a bonus action.
Well, I mean, a big thing about that is if they save on vicious mockery, it did nothing. There goes your action.
Yeah, you don't do damage. You don't get they just save and it's nothing. So for me, I know bards have things they can use their bonus action for, but vicious mockery, I in my game, it's a bonus action.
Why didn't you let Epic use it as a bonus action?
I'm sorry, Lucas.
It's fine. He's gone.
he's
Probably dead.
he's gone. Yeah. Tales from Beyond. Um, Bonus action is spend. Use a bardic inspiration, and you roll on the spirits table. Okay.
It kind of reminds me of is it the druid spell or the cleric spell where you give like cats wisdom or something
Oh,
like
okay.
that?
There's the
It,
enhanceability.
yeah, it's kind of like that, but you roll for whatever you get.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Advantage on wisdom. Count the story of a renowned duelist. Make a melee spell attack. Hmm. Okay. Oh, there's quite a lot here. Okay.
Yeah, I like seven because you have a chance to charm them and force them to attack something.
Well, and the nice thing about this is you're using your bardic inspiration die. So this is a scaling ability, and I've done this with some of my subclasses where I did a subclass with a friend where it was a sorcerer that used a kind of a summoner's deck, and
Hmm.
as their die would progress, you would have access to further elements in the chart. So with a bard, you have a d6 when you first start out, so you only get options 1 through 6 up to hero. But as you level up your bard, you're now going to be able to roll higher as you get to a d8 and a d10, and then eventually a d12. So that's
Did
kind of
you did you read what that D12 rolling a 12 does?
I haven't. I mean, I'm looking at this for the first time.
Uh, they gotta make an intelligence saving throw, or take psychic damage equal to 3 rolls of your bardic inspiration die, and then is unable to speak any language for 1 minute. It could shut down any
Wow.
spellcaster.
Wow.
That is really good.
I mean, it's a 1 in 12 chance that you're going to get it. And at that point, the damage is almost inconsequential. I don't care what my rolls are for that damage. I want that silence for a minute.
Yeah, that
Yeah. Well, so Celestial
is a
equal to
buff.
2 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration plus your Bard level, and you end 1 disease or condition. Hmm. Dragon. So target magically spews fire and a 30-foot cone each equal to 3 rolls of your. I think this is cool. Like this right here, this Tales from Beyond, that is a really cool mechanic. The way that you feel like your character's getting a little more powerful. Your inspiration is getting more powerful.
Yeah, I really like it because there's a point in the game as a bard when you get higher level
Hmm.
where your inspiration just it's not cutting it
Yeah.
anymore.
This for spiritual focus, this 6th level ability that needs to go away. If they took
Yeah,
that out, this here is enough to make me want to play this class. Just this feature here, the Tales from Beyond. That would make me want to play this class. Just this feature here. So,
well,
and you're getting a
the
6th level feature as well. So,
the mystical connection, which
mhm.
is a 14th level, you don't have to use your inspiration die.
Really,
You just use it. You have to use the D6 though, so it only cuts it through the
okay,
D6.
yeah. I mean, the same thing goes for the College of Swords, where you can flourish a D6 if you're out of
Yeah,
inspiration. So, I mean, that's still really good. I like this. And for me, like in MMOs, if there's a bard option and that bard is not a pure buffer, then I'm not like it kind of I don't like that. But I like buffing classes. I like classes where I'm going out there and I'm giving boons to the party or I'm giving negative effects to the enemy. And I'm not necessarily the one that's doing the damage, but I'm helping the group.
how many times did I say Fjorg with cutting words?
Yeah, a lot. I kept trying to kill him. So,
Or the invisible enemies. You just cast fairy fire.
hmm,
It's nice to have that. That I'm here to help, but I'm not going to kill that thing.
yeah. So now we have the warlock. Uh, so it's just the undead is the other worldly patron. So
I I like that Strahd can be your patron.
yeah, is that oh, okay?
It can
Yeah,
be yeah
I see
yeah.
that. Hmm. So if you have a player who's playing a warlock, the undead, and Strahd's your patron, and you're playing in Curse of Strahd, how does that work?
You gotta turn on the party eventually, I guess.
I suppose so.
I think most of the adventure would you be fighting against Strahd, and then because Strahd is so like focused on his other things and getting what's her name, that just like
Hmm.
for the final battle, he's like, "Wait, I know you. Why are you fighting me? I'm giving you this power. Attack them."
Yeah, and Strahd's just like, turn on them. And all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I cast on so and so. And the party's like, what? No, because like I would go the whole game with not telling the group who my patron is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or whenever you do the role play sessions, if you talking to your patron,
Yeah.
if your DM's in on it, just how am I doing? Oh, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Soon, yeah, just play it up like you're not working with them. That'd be fun.
So form of dread. So it's a transformation. So you're gaining temporary hit points.
That's nice.
You hit a creature with an attack. You can force it to make a wisdom save. It's frightened. Okay. And you're immune to the frightened condition. Nothing here is overly powerful.
I mean, so far, I'm looking at Grave Touch right now. You don't need to
Hmm.
eat, drink, or breathe. Oh, damage creature you can place damage with necrotic.
Okay. Oh. Wow. Okay.
Immune to necrotic damage.
So this is it. So here's one where we want to look at rules as worded. So in addition, when you hit a creature with an attack, so that's a spell or a physical attack, whether it's
Yeah.
ranged or melee. The roll damage against the creature, you can replace the damage type with necrotic, so you can be now casting Eldritch Blast as necrotic if you wanted to. And
Yeah.
while you're using your form, you can roll one additional damage die when determining the necrotic damage the target takes. So keep in mind, if you're casting Eldritch Blast, each beam is a separate attack. So when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you get to add an additional die. Am I reading this right? When you hit a creature with an
Okay.
attack roll, you can change the damage type while you're using your form. So if you're in your form for a minute, you can roll one additional damage die when determining necrotic damage the target takes. So, yeah, you get to roll. You're basically rolling double on your Eldritch
Yeah,
Blast.
2d10 necrotic for an Eldritch Blast after
Yeah,
necrotic.
it doesn't say anything because yes, it's one action to cast Eldritch Blast, but when you're rolling to hit, you're hitting each target individually. So because
Yeah,
each damage roll is its own damage roll with Eldritch Blast, so you're actually rolling 2d10, and it doesn't have to be necrotic. One of them will be as part of this. While you're using the form, you can roll one additional damage die, the necrotic damage the target takes.
I think you can only do it once though while you're in the form though.
While you're
Is
using
what I
this,
said. You can roll one additional damage
while you
die.
are using your form of dread, you can roll one additional damage die when determining the necrotic damage the target takes. So you have to change the damage to necrotic.
And I think you only get one time you can basically double it.
But it's the first part of this paragraph. In addition, when you hit a creature with an attack and roll damage against the creature, you can replace the damage type with necrotic damage. While you're using your form of dread, you can roll one additional damage die when determining necrotic damage the target takes. So, because each one of those Eldritch Blasts is technically a separate source of damage, you're rolling to hit, because it says when you hit a creature with an attack and roll damage, you're rolling damage separately each time you hit the creature. If you change that damage type to necrotic, you would also get to add an additional you would damage die when determining the necrotic damage the target takes.
So you're basically saying the way it reads is if you did two Eldritch Blasts, each one of them could be doubled if you do necrotic.
Yeah, each one of them could roll 2d10. Because you get to roll one additional damage die, but that only reflects the fact that you rolled and hit.
I think they either need to reword
Oh,
that
absolutely.
or make it so that it grows. Like, oh, at this level, you got to add a D4 when doing necrotic, and then to a D6. You know?
See, I would have changed this whole thing right here, the MB, like you can change any of your spell attacks to do necrotic damage, and anytime you do necrotic damage, add your warlock level to the damage you do, or add your proficiency, or add your charisma modifier to the damage you
I
do.
like the add your warlock level. That's a really good touch.
I mean, that could be pretty. That's really powerful. I mean, if you're changing the damage in your 20th level warlock, you're adding plus 20 to damage. But if it was just add your charisma mod, because a lot of people are going to take that invocation to add charisma mod to their Eldritch Blast. But if you
Yeah, so
don't,
it already gets it.
so if you hit 6th level, you're going to get that. You don't need to burn the invocation for it. You can focus on other more mechanical things and say, okay, I'm going to change my Eldritch Blast to necrotic damage, and because I'm doing necrotic damage, I'm going to add my plus 5 charisma to that as well, or plus 4, or whatever your charisma is at that time. That's a much better mechanic because it's consistent. Anytime you do necrotic damage, add your charisma mod.
Wait until you get to the mortal husk
Oh,
in addition.
oh my god. Okay. Oh, the foreshadowing. Okay. You have resistance to necrotic damage. If you transform using your form of dread, you instead become immune to necrotic damage. I mean, that's not so far not so horrible. 0 hit points, you can cause your body to explode. Okay. Each creature within 30 feet of you takes necrotic damage equal to 2d10 plus your warlock level. You then revive with 1 hit point in your previous space along with your gear, and you gain 1 level of exhaustion. Okay. Once you revive this way, you can't do so again until you finish 1d4 long rests. Okay. Huh.
It
It has enough negatives tied to it where I don't think it's overpowered.
I'm not saying it's overpowered. I'm saying when you're surrounded by your friend, because it doesn't say creatures you choose
Yeah.
or any. It says creatures.
Yeah. Huh.
It sounds like you're more of a danger to your own team because you're going to be doing 2d10 plus whatever your level is. You're a
Well,
level 20 warlock and you do that. And you roll just a 10 altogether. That's
Mm-hmm.
30 points of damage to everybody
Yeah.
within 30 feet of you.
Well, and here's the other negative part of it is you revive with 1 hit point in your previous space along with your gear. So you're going to be in the middle of a crowd of enemies, explode, and piss them off, and then you
And then just
revive back at 1 hit point, just one breath away from dying again.
hope it's your turn next and you got blink.
Yeah, no kidding, right? A misty step, something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, just get out of there.
Spirit projection. Project your spirit from your body outside your body for up to an hour. You gain the following: resistance to damage. When you cast a spell, the spell doesn't require verbal, somatic, or material components that lack gold cost. You have flying speed. You can move through creatures and objects. But you take, if you stop, okay. Once during each of your turns, when you deal necrotic damage to a creature, regain hit points equal to half the amount. Good lord.
Yeah, there's that add a double dice on necrotic damage coming back.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
I
So,
I feel like this class needs some work.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The body you leave behind is unconscious and in a state of suspended animation. So, you're leaving your body behind. Your spirit remains outside your body for up to 1 hour or until your concentration is broken, as if concentrating on a spell. When your projection ends, your spirit returns to your body, or your body magically teleports to your spirit space, your choice.
I don't really like that
So,
because that gets you through so many obstacles.
what this isn't conveying is they never once say what the statistics are of your spirit. Is your spirit tangible? Like, can your spirit be attacked? Does your spirit have your hit points in your armor class? Like, there's nothing in here that describes the spirit.
The way I'm reading it is because it mentions that it's for 1 hour until your concentration is
Yeah.
broken, means they have to hit your body because you're forcing
Oh.
your spirit out of your body. So
So,
your spirit can go around and attack, but your body's just there.
so,
Like if you used it, your body would fall over, and then you could
yeah.
go move around the battlefield and attack as you please.
So you could do like a Houdini thing and
Yeah,
have like, if you're like a really, so say you're playing like a halfling and you drop out of your bag of holding a safe that has air holes, and you jump in the safe and shut the door, and then activate spirit projection. Your spirit is now out there casting spells and raising havoc. Well, so here's something. Your spirit and body gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So here's something where it clarifies the rules as intended. That your spirit has these protections, has this resistance, which means your spirit can be targeted. Your body and spirit count as the same creature when applying damage, armor class. They need to specifically say that this is a targetable creature that has your statistics. Uh, so the concentration would be also if you attack the spirit, your concentration could also end because it's as if you're attacking the same target.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of broken a couple of ways if the
Yeah.
spirit is completely invulnerable.
If you don't really read into it and kind of and go in this with the rules as intended, it sounds the way it's worded confusing, convoluted, and broken. I'm not saying I'm against it. I like the direction they're going, but I think this should have had a few more passes around the table. Like when they round tabled this, they should have really looked it over a little bit more. I like the College of Spirits. I definitely think that the spiritual focus, 6th level ability needs to go away. Um, Other than that, it's really kind of a fun build. The College of Spirit, the College of Spirits. I like that. The
Yeah,
Warlock needs to be worked on.
I like the idea of just you being a warlock and getting hit and exploding and killing your team. Like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah.
Damn it, Strahd.
And it's just this big blood ball explosion when you die, and then your body reforms. Narratively, it could be pretty cool.
It's. I know you're not a big anime fan, but it's literally just Vegeta blowing himself up.
So one of my biggest hobbies is miniature collecting. So with miniature collecting, I like having miniatures to represent my players, my creatures, and really as a player, I like having that perfect miniature. And this website here, minisgallery.com, is an amazing resource for tracking what's out there, what's coming out, all this stuff. So they try and get as much information as they can. They try and get pictures visible out there. Their release dates won't always be accurate, but it will give you a good idea of what month it should come out in. So what's coming out here in August is we have the Premium Figures Wave 3. These will be individually sold. These are all sculpts that are part of their pre-primed unpainted line through the like the Volos and the Marvelous miniatures. You'll see them in a lot of your game stores, but these will come pre-painted for people like me that don't paint. And you've got a few options. This is going to be one of your first Tabaxi options right here. It's kind of a nice sculpt, good color combination.
Can I just say, look at that human warlock. That thing is amazing.
The human warlock, yeah. And
With all the tendrils
this
coming out.
spell effect will most likely be clear with the blue tint to it when it comes out. I like the bone through the hair. That's kind of cool.
I really like that.
So you're gonna have a Furbog druid. So this will be one of the first Furbogs. Dragonborn, there aren't a lot of Dragonborn models, and this is a cool one because it doesn't have a tail, so it's a little more accurate. For me, if you want to play Dragonborn with a tail or without a tail, I don't care. They just don't have wings. But a tail, no tail, doesn't bother me. This is the one I'm sorry, but Ninja Turtle. I mean, it's Turtle Monk. I'm playing Donatello with that miniature, without a doubt.
The second best Ninja Turtle.
So I'm going to do a Monk Artificer multi-class and play Donatello. So
That sounds like a good description of him.
yeah, you got a Goliath here. So there's a lot of good options here. Each one of these will be singles. They're about $8 a piece, if my memory serves right. So, you'll be able to pick and choose a few of these. You may have to order them on Amazon. I've noticed a lot of game stores don't generally get these because they are a little more expensive and they have to order each one individually.
I
So
think I'm gonna buy that female Tabaxi. I really
the
like
female Tabaxi, yeah, I'll probably get the Tabaxi. I like the Elf Cleric, the Dragonborn, the Furbolg. I don't really need more Goliaths. I have plenty.
that. I know the human fighter is so basic, but I love the pose where you're like, "Ha ha, come at me."
Yeah, yeah, the human fighter. I'll get the turtle for sure because I only have the turtle that came. I'll show you here. It came with the Joe Mangelone. I can't pronounce his name ever. But I probably won't get this one because I have a model that's super close to this already. I feel like this is kind of just a repose of something they've done before. But I mean, it's still a decent model. I do like the furs and all that, so I might still get that one. But the Archon the Cruel set, which I picked up, I haven't gotten those displayed yet, but this is the only other turtle I have. It's the Death Cleric Crawl,
Uh,
but it's a really cool set. I wish they would come out with a Minotaur with more Minotaurs that weren't large base, because you have Minotaur the race that you can play, which is a medium base character. But then Minotaurs from the Monster Manual and everything is large base. So, like, you have a lot of cool Minotaurs out there, but they're large base, which isn't a playable character size. So I find
the
that
The only one I've found is the Reaper's Bone miniature,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a
and
few
it
there.
has the issue of kind of like bending over and falling over.
Yeah, there's actually another option in uh, Guildmasters. And it's not this one, it's the other one. So here you have a Minotaur fighter in a medium base. And then you also have a Loxodon cleric, which I've played a Loxodon Forge cleric, which was a lot of fun. So this here is a set of 5. If you find this, it's a pack of 5. They're all included. It's a cool set. So if we come back up here to what's coming out, I didn't get the Sapphire Dragon just because there's no stat block for it. So we have the premium figures, but the next set that's coming out, it should be coming out, I think, this week or next week. But there's the Mythic Odyssey of Theros. I wasn't going to pick up this set. I am going to try and get one model, which is the Iron Class, the Leonin. I need this for a character that I'm playing in a campaign. I'm playing a Sun Soul Tabaxi Monk, so I really need this model. So I'll have
Excuse
to
me, what is that next to the Minotaur?
next this year.
To the left, to the left.
Medusa.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean it's for the Theros setting book or these miniatures, and you get the World Eater. I have that card from the Theros block.
I'm sorry, but if you put that Medusa on the table, I'm getting up and leaving the game. I think it's
Yeah, the lion's pretty cool. I like the lion, but I'm not gonna buy this set. I'm just gonna buy some singles from it if I can find them, because I kind of want this guy here, this Leonin.
Uh-huh.
I really want him. He's just a cool model.
Scroll down a little bit.
What's that?
Then,
Oh, to see it?
Is it? I'm trying to tell. Is it the one under Medusa?
Well, it's hard. Oh, because you can't see my cursor because I don't have the. So, Brimaz King Oreskos. It's tough because it's not just the model; it has a blue background on it. So from the Medusa, if you go up one and over right one,
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
yeah.
I thought it was being blocked by your anvil, and I was like, well,
yeah, no. Unfortunately, I don't have the cursor active.
that's fine. That's fine.
So, but yeah, there's only a few. There's some singles that I want to get from that. For next month, we have the Adult White Dragon, which I will be getting this somehow. I have to talk to my local game store, see if they can still order it. I think I've missed the window. COVID has been really challenging when it comes to miniature collecting. There's way more challenges with COVID. I'm not downplaying COVID by any means. But when it comes to miniature collecting, COVID has been a problem.
It's been bad everywhere, but in this one area.
In this one area of my life, yeah, it's extra difficult. And then also in September, we have the new adventure with Icewind Dale miniature set coming out. You've got some cool. You got this knoll here, which I thought was a really nice sculpt. You've got the Cold Crone. So on the right side, you've got the Cold Crone. It's kind of like an owl bearer demon. And then you have the Knoll Archer below that. You just get some more Arctic themed.
That's a nice Goliath too.
Yeah, with the
shield.
I don't know if that's a bear or if it's a wolf head on him.
Yeah, I can't tell from here either.
A Goliath werebear. That's pretty cool.
How about just an elk?
So
or a moose or a reindeer, whatever that's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's an interesting set. I'm not the only reason the young white dragon I really want. The mammoth I think would be cool to have too. And then this is I don't even know how to pronounce that, but this dragon looks impressive.
Can you click on it so it zooms in? Like bring up the page for just it?
Yeah, this is just
I still can't read it.
It's Chardalin Dragon.
I like it. It looks almost like an armored dragon.
Yeah.
Like it's got like a knight's helm and everything. That is pretty badass.
Yeah. So I can zoom in. I don't know if it's that easier to see if I zoom in on the page.
Oh yeah, Chardalin Dragon.
Yeah. So
Do they have
Yeah,
a price point on it already?
well, that will be the special piece. So typically, if you just go into Amazon, this special piece will probably be $49.99. That's the average price for the special because this is going to be a gigantic base.
Yeah.
And so for singles, like the young white dragon, as a single will probably immediately be $30 sold as a single. So you could run the risk of trying to get it by buying blind packs, or you can just buy it straight out. You could end up spending $100 in blind packs and not get that young white dragon. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to decide if it's worth it. I just like collecting the dragon models more than anything. There are some nice sculpts in here, so I may just get a brick of this just
I
to
see.
get some of it and just hope I get lucky and get the white dragon. So Curse of Strahd is going through an update and they're releasing NPC miniatures for that setting. So keep an eye out for these. These are coming in October. So you get some visualization. You actually get Strahd, Vanzerovich. So this would be a nice. It'll be a 2-pack set. And then beyond that, in November we got Fangs and Claws, which hasn't been. It's been announced, but nothing's visible for it.
I'm excited for it though,
Yeah, yeah, that
for
one.
obvious reasons.
Yeah. So beyond that, this website has a lot of miniature collections to look at. Path. I only buy Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, and the Pathfinder sets are actually really nice. They just didn't make anything for a while. I just did the City of Lost Omens as a stream. Went through that. Got some nice models. Got the Tenku Rogue. I didn't get the Rack Folk Grenader, which I wanted. It's a really cool model. Got that. Got quite a few of these things. I don't know if I got the Damphir Wizard, which I thought I did get the Cat Pouncer. It's a great sculpt on the left hand side.
Yeah, I see it.
I believe I got the Knight of the Aeon Star. I think I got this one. It's a really cool model. I did get the Minotaur. Once again, it's a large base, but this would have been perfect for Chicago since he uses the battle axes. So the DM will probably let me just use him. Did get the Ankylosaurus. Well, it's called something different, but yeah, it was a pretty cool set. It's got a lot of model options. I didn't get the Green Dragon, so I'll probably have to find that separately and pay an arm and a leg for it.
Did you get the random pendulum over there?
No, actually, I got the Dark Side Mirror.
Ah, nice.
I would have liked to have gotten the Wheel of Misery though. That would have been cool. I did get the
What was
special.
their specials? I see the.
I did get the
Oh, fuck.
specials. It's a 2-pack.
The,
So
the
this,
dragon.
yeah, so you get the black and the red dragon in the same box, which was a great savings to get them together. So, and the red dragon, the wings on this red dragon were so impressive. When you look at that close up in detail, it's this red dragon looks like his entire body is covered in burn scar tissue.
That's
It's
pretty epic.
it's pretty crazy. So they do have Darklands Rising, which is a December release. There's nothing out for it. But minisgallery.com, great website to go to if you want to look at miniature releases coming up. So at this point, I'd like to kind of take a little break from the general discussion just to kind of plug social medias. Lucas and I both have Twitter. I have Fjorg at Fjorg the Builder. You can actually find all my social media on at Fjorg the Builder. Twitch is a little different because it's Fjorg underscore the underscore builder. But you can join our Discord where you'll see Twitch announcements through my Twitter. You can find me on TikTok at Fjorg the Builder. And I pretty much just stick to Twitter, TikTok, Discord, and Twitch. But on YouTube, I also have a YouTube, but we got Luke the Lucas. He's got his Twitter here, which this is a newer Twitter account. since he just created this one in January. He's kind of jumping over from an old Twitter to this is going to be your gaming Twitter, I think.
Yeah.
So he's got his YouTube channel that he's building up. He's 26 subscribers, man. That's impressive. You're
It's something.
yeah. Well, I haven't. I've got 6. So
I'm one of those 6. I like your content.
I like my content too.
But I mean, anyone who listens to this who likes D&D should definitely join the Discord.
yeah. I need to figure out why my arc category isn't showing up. So oh well.
Because I mean, we're going to be resuming our Discord D&D game.
Yeah, that should be next Saturday.
There's tons of artists,
Mhm.
gamers, board gamers, collectors. I think it's probably my favorite Discord that I've joined.
Yeah, I really like the way Discord is shaped out. Um, Need to get some activity going on it again. So if anybody wants to join a cool Discord that kind of fits the theme of this podcast too, it's D&D heavy with a lot of gaming influences as well, and just pop culture and just all around kind of
We have a
interests.
nice meme channel to go drop your
Yeah,
spiciest memes.
yep, definitely a good place to hang out is the meme channel.
Did you see my Star Wars one? You should look at it after this.
The Star Wars one.
I posted it this morning.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to look at that. I probably did just for my habitual sense of I have to clear notifications. So I probably went through it, but I usually go back and read through everything. So yeah, that's our Twitter and our YouTube pages. Next, I want to go into video gaming because video gaming is a big part of my life. But mostly, I want to talk about a game that when it first came out, I was super hyped about this game. I love like if there's like giant robot anime or like mech anime, like I used to watch Guyver when I was a kid. I love all that stuff. The exosuits, any of that kind of realm of things. Giant robots, exosuits, all that. So I failed at word talking there. But Anthem, I was super excited about it. I was following it from its E3 release, when they announced it. And then the game came out, and the gameplay was fantastic. Like the movement through the universe, flying around, the shooting, the abilities, each javelin felt very unique. The story was where it started to go downhill. The story was very disjointed. The load screens were obnoxious. You get new items and equipment in the as you're adventuring, but you don't know what you actually got until you got back to the main hub. So you may have been out there for an hour and collected a bunch of orbs, and then you go back to the main hub, and then it tells you what you got, and it may be all garbage, and now you got to go back out and start adventuring again, and it's another load screen. So with Anthem, they're doing updates, but they're actually looking at going through. BioWare is taking this very seriously, and they're going to go through and they're going to completely renovate the looter shooter portion of the game and go with things where you get more drops, you get access to your drops immediately. You get all loot rarities have strategic value, so as you're playing through the game, everything's giving you something of value. They're going to increase the number of vendors you can go to, the number of quests in the game, and so they want the looting experience to feel rewarding. Division 2 was a game I played a bit of, and I thought that the loot system was pretty good in that until you got to endgame. I didn't like the heavy farm rotation that you had to go through, but I thought the experience leveling up in Division was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that they carry a lot of those kind of influences into Anthem. So, did you play Anthem, Lucas?
I actually pre-ordered and played Anthem the day it came out, so I
Mm-hmm.
was super excited for it. I mean, My my experience with the game kind of mirrors yours. The movement and combat was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like each javelin felt really special,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't play any of them the same way. It was a lot of fun with my friend I played with. We had some pretty funny moments in there, but the story was really lackluster. The hub world was obnoxious and slow and boring, and like you brought up with the loot, like you didn't know what you were getting.
Mm-hmm.
The legendaries were all the same with just like slight minor differences, so they didn't even feel any special.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they're in this image here. They're actually talking about how they're going to open up enemy faction loot as loot you can acquire. So it's not just going to be the freelancer stuff that you were getting that was all themed very specifically. Now you're also going to be able to get Dominion themed items, Urgoth and Scar themed items. So if you're building out your javelin to look a certain way, you're going to have access to weapons that fit that look. I hope that they're going to give you the option to like maybe like copy over weapon skins. I think would be really cool. Like if you wanted to use a specific weapon but you don't like the way it looks. But I doubt they'll go that far. But I'm next year in 2021 they're going to be doing a big re-release of Anthem. And I really hope that they take the time to do it right and really give you something that the gameplay was so good as far as the controls, and the world was beautiful. The design of all that was really well done. I hope they get a chance to really finish the game.
like I gotta back you up there. I mean, I never had more fun than being the like ninja-esque mech and
Hmm.
just running through the ground on the ground meleeing enemies. Buddy was above me casting magic as a caster.
Yeah,
Like they nailed that.
I
They
played the
nailed that.
caster a lot. I had some of the legendaries, and yeah, it was awesome being able to chain off of each other.
It was so much fun. I was just looking on Steam to see if they had Anthem because I would not be adverse to rebuying it for cheap and replaying through it.
Well, yeah, but you got to get it through EA. So,
But they put a bunch of EA games on Steam and
well,
like
but you still have to go through the EA launcher, don't you?
you do.
Hmm.
But the thing is EA has a bit of a problem with people trying to get access to your account. I don't know how many people, like how many times I got
Hmm.
two-step verification messages in Russian.
Hmm.
So I deleted that account and lost everything I had with it.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, but if you buy it with Steam and someone tries to get into your account, you're not going to have any financial details attached to it. And
Yeah.
if you delete that account, you still got Steam. You just need to re-download a new account to tie to it.
That's good advice. I do feel like I trust Steam to protect my information a lot more than other, and I would prefer to buy it. And like, I just wish that you didn't have to use the downloader. I wish you could just run it through Steam. But everybody wants their piece of the information pie. So
Yeah, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
yeah. So the next game I want to talk about, and I just want to briefly talk about, is World of Warcraft Shadowlands. I did buy this. I didn't do the beta, even though I got access to the beta. But I will be streaming a brand new character. I'm gonna make a brand new character from level 1 all the way to 60, play through as one character, and I'm gonna stream that progress. So that's really the only part of this I want to touch on too, but I do want to clear that. Baldur's Gate. There's a countdown because
Oh,
in 2 days, 22 hours, 13 minutes, and some seconds, the early access release date will be revealed.
you you better bet I am pre-ordering this game.
I
If
would imagine.
if I don't have enough money, I will put on a mask. I will put on whatever I have to. I will go out there and I will donate blood.
Yeah.
Because what is it, Larian Studios? They got the little suction cup stuck to the
Yep.
soldier head down there.
Yep. Larian.
Yeah, they have made great games. I
Hmm.
love Divinity Original Sin 2. Never played the first one,
Yeah.
and I trust them with this. This game, I'm looking heavily forward to.
From what I've seen in some of the stream recordings and whatnot, it's basically the player's handbook in a video game for D&D. The classes are in there. All they take the features and all that, and they create them into a video game, into a reasonable approximation of what it would mean in a video game. And it so far looks really good. And you're gonna have Chris Perkins on this release date stream, so you can add the event to your calendar. I just googled Baldur's Gate, but you're gonna want to look for like the Baldur's Gate 3 dot game. And once you get there, I would add it to your calendar, or if they have an email option, I'm not sure how they're doing this, but you're gonna have a panel, and so you've got the creative director, the host, senior writer, and you're gonna have Chris Perkins on there. So
That I need to map out exactly when it's gonna start,
mhm.
because if it starts while I'm at work, I'm just gonna take my lunch early and watch it.
Well, it's gonna be Monday. I mean, if we're looking at, well, maybe Tuesday actually. So it's almost noon here. So it's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It'll be at 10 a.m. and it will be on Tuesday. Tuesday at 10 a.m. is what I'm seeing here. But
Okay, I'm fine with that because it'll be on Twitch. I'll put it into audio
mhm.
phones that pop out and just listen to it.
Yeah.
Because
So
this game is, you said you watched the gameplay premieres, right?
mhm. Yeah.
The minute he used Mage Hand, I was like, they know.
Well,
I trust.
so if it's 10 a.m. for me Pacific time, it's going to be 1 p.m. for you. So you definitely won't be at work.
I'll be just getting out of work. I
Oh,
got
will you? Okay. Oh, you're on that later morning shift now, aren't you?
Yeah, 4 a.m. to 1 p.m.
See, I worked that for a while back when I was working retail, and I liked that shift.
I think all the COVID stuff is really draining me
Yeah. Especially when
because
you're an essential, like you've never stopped working. Like you've always been essential, and you're working in a service market. It's tough.
oh yeah, like the math, the distancing, because there's a lot of customers who don't pay any attention to any of that and just do
Hmm.
what they want to.
Yeah.
So it's on us to go out of our way to try and provide.
Yeah.
We're not talking about crafting right
No,
now.
that's
Let's
not. We're talking
talk.
about video games and D&D. So the final segment that we're going to go through is one I wanted to talk about, like the streaming content, whether it's Amazon Prime or Netflix, or Disney Plus. But there's something I noticed, and I noticed this last year, but really specifically, I think it dawned on me this year. This is the year of like the season two, like of great shows. So I just finished Umbrella Academy season two, and I love that show. I love the style, the way it's filmed. The characters are all super interesting and different. But you also have here in September The Boys season two, which is another superhero show, and it's dark and it's got great humor and it's filmed in a very interesting way. You're gonna have Mandalorian season two in I think November, and that's another show where it feels so old school Star Wars, and you've got really interesting characters. It's not just the Mandalorian. Like I love Cara Dune's that character. I think she's really interesting. They took the time to just say, "Hey, this is who she is. This is what she did." Like you need to have a little bit of Star Wars knowledge to understand like the shock trooper thing, but like her character makes sense. She's a badass for a reason because she was part of like the hardcore elite squadron of people for the rebellion. And you also have Witcher season two, which will probably be a 2021 release. But like, there's all these great shows that are in their second season, so it's like a great time to be into this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, now's the time to push for it with everyone having to stay at home.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these companies kind of regret not having more on their slate because they can't. It's really hard to film anything right now. So you're pretty much putting out and you're releasing what you've already worked on. So
So I'm really looking forward to the Mandalorian season 2.
I think
Uh,
really where people are going to get the most content is YouTube. Like, because small creators aren't restricted by COVID
I
as
mean,
much.
I'm still working and I'm trying to pick streaming back up.
Yeah.
I've noticed there's a pretty big influx of people out there.
Well, yeah, it is a saturated market, but I mean, look at Doctor Disrespect. He just went to YouTube. His opening stream was 500,000 people plus, and I don't remember what the number was, but I saw someone had posted, someone had tracked all of the donations that were popping up on the screen, and the amount of money people were throwing at him was insane. Like, I don't know. I've never given money to a streamer. I did once. It was a charity stream, but I don't watch a lot of streams myself. I'm trying to get into streaming, not so that people can just throw money at me. I just like sharing and broadening my ability to reach people for the conversation, like I talked about at the beginning. But I it never dawned on me just how influential these streamers are.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of in the same vein. I'm streaming, but like I don't want to ever be the guy who's like, "Hey, well, you haven't given me $10." I want to cheer people up. I know how hard it is to have a bad day. There's been
Mm-hmm.
tons of times I've had a bad day. I can come home and watch like my favorite YouTuber, watch one of my favorite streams or something like that, and it's instant help. And I would like to try and at least be that for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
Absolutely.
I would definitely look into more YouTubers, stuff like that.
Yeah, one channel that I've really been enjoying is Wormwood. They just launched a new Kickstarter. They broke the website because they're releasing an affordable table and in like a ton of different sizes. You can even get a coffee table made by Wormwood. So their Kickstarter's live right now. They just partnered with a massive furniture manufacturer in the area that they're in, Pennsylvania, I think. But it's the people that they've hired at this company. They're all just so damn likable, and they're funny and they're interesting. It's a great company, and they're doing this Worm Life YouTube channel. They release 2 episodes a week. They want to do an episode every day of the week, just to talk about their business and being transparent with their customers. I mean, that's such a unique way of going about I think it's really remarkable.
Like, yeah, I would appreciate if more companies tried to do that.
Yeah. So I think it's really worth the look. And they have a lot of content. Their most recent video is, well, they're just talking about the Kickstarter, but they're on season 5 of their show. So, and then you had told me about this stream, the Unexpectables. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a D&D channel that I watch. They do games every Wednesday and Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, I think 7 p.m. PST. And on Wednesdays they play The Unexpectables, which was the game they started I think over 2, 3 years ago. Which is the DM Monty Glue. The players are Takahata 101. He's known for being in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, as well as other Abridged series. Chris Vito, who works with Team 4 Star, who did the Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Connor McKinley, who's done a couple of things. You probably know him as Discord Devil. And Gaijin Goomba, who does his YouTube all about Japan life, and Edward Bosco, who is a pretty well-known voice actor. He was in the new Netflix Transformers series where he played Soundwave and somebody else.
I forgot about that Netflix Transformers series. I need to watch that.
Yeah, and it is your regular Dungeons and Dragons fantasy setting. They have a podcast and everything. I watch live every Wednesday, and then on Saturdays tonight they're doing the Prince division, which sees the return of Edward Bosco and Distortion Devil. But you have Sarah, I forget her last name. She's a pretty well-known voice actress. She was in Persona 5 as well as a couple of animes. And Arkov, who is a small-time streamer, but he's moving up. And they play in a modern-day D&D setting where they play as cops for something called the Prince Division, where there's a thing that humans can be born with where they're called a prince or princess, where they're mages who just exude tons of magic, and magic-based races like dragons and fae. If they get around them, they can start feeding off that magic. So their job is to protect and serve the princes and princesses of the world.
Hmm.
Uh, I would say their DMing isn't on level of like Matthew Mercer when it comes to detail, but
That's challenging. That's not an easy feat.
Monty is amazing at just leaving these little clues for things where you're like, oh yeah, look at that, and then you'll see something else later, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that, and eventually it was playing to something big where you're like, holy shit, I did not see this coming, but there's
Hmm.
been clues all up to this.
So he's really good at putting like the threads out there and then tying them together.
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's nice. That's
They
nice.
also,
I'll have to
uh,
look into that with my never-ending amount of time that I seem to have. Um,
they do an art stream on Fridays too for fan art.
yeah, I was seeing that they had a little stream down there. It's really good. I mean, they've got almost 8K followers. It's not a small channel. So
They also keep it where you do not have to subscribe to watch. You can watch for free. There's no ads or anything.
that's nice. Yeah, because you really don't want like stream ads during a performance.
Nah.
Like that would just take you completely away as an audience. So, well, that's good. I mean, really, we are 2 hours and 12 minutes into this, and we covered a lot of stuff. I don't know if we'll do this long next time. We may kind of go at a more refined list of topics. I didn't really know how long we would go. Did you think we'd go
There,
this long?
no. But I mean, when you get to talking about things you care about, you know.
Yeah. I I at first I thought I'd really struggle with coming up with stuff to talk about or topics. That's why I made that outline. And the outline was helpful. But yeah, I think we could have a much more organic conversation and feel just as confident about it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, we have a lot of the same interests,
Yeah.
and you know, hopefully, people start watching. We can start listening to the people who chat and play off of them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to actually join the chat room and influence the direction of the conversation.
Because I would love to see people in here and be like, this has been my bad D&D experience, or this
Yeah.
has been the funniest thing that's happened to me in D&D.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the best way to do that too is to join the Discord. And if there's a topic that you would want us to talk about, the Discord is a great place to do that. And you can find a link on my Twitter profile to get right into the Discord.
Or if you mention anything about D&D, I'll come in and sneak a link to you so I can
Yeah.
notice.
Well, and it's also on my Twitch profile. There should be a link in there
Yep,
too. So,
there is a link right there.
yep. Yep, join the Fjord Discord or go to my Twitter. They're both on there. Um, so I wasn't really watching the Twitch panel, but if anybody did come in and watch, thank you. For those of you that will see this as a rebroadcast, thank you. And for those of you that might see this on YouTube, thank you. And I think that's going to be it for us today, right?
I mean, yeah. Unless you want to delve into the secrets of the universe.
No, probably not today. Not 2 hours and 15 minutes into this. I think
Next
we'll save it for next time. And also the music. I assume you could hear the music. People could hear it.
I had it muted. Let me check real quick
Okay.
because I didn't want to hear echoes.
So the music that you're about to hear was created by Lucas. It's how I turned it on to open, and I think it's closing the show. Is it?
Yeah, I hear it.
Good. I think you did a wonderful job with this music.
I'm muting it immediately.
Now, is this a it's hard to watch or listen to your own work kind of thing, or
Yeah.
yeah,
I hate everything I ever made.
yeah, that's it is hard to be confident in the work that you do. Like I think a lot of people struggle with that. Maybe.
I had a small window covering up my fox art the entire time.
Oh,
I
jeez.
didn't want to see it.